business.
Well, of course, 8 minutes past 8 a.m. and of course, Smart Men's Business is still here, driving you till 9:55 a.m. And don't forget, the markets in Zabu are going to be open just 5 minutes from now. And of course, you're going to be accessing Zabu services. So if you want to reach out to Zabu, you can dial *292# and that is the USSD code, and you can follow those prompts. So as low as 15,000 again in shillings, you can invest in government bonds and securities. Zabu says, my money, my future. And of course, today being a Wednesday, Zabu is operational from Monday to Friday. Zabu is there for you from 8:15 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. That is when you can access Zabu. Those are the working time. So powered by Otex East Africa, they're telling you to do something new. It's the year 2023, except for public holidays and weekend. Zabu is operational. So starting from Saturday and Sunday, Zabu is not operational, and of course public holidays, which I don't think we have this very month. So please, today is operational for Zabu. You can invest in government bonds and securities if you feel like your money is there and intact, you don't know where to place it. So Zabu says, your money, your future. Anyway, right about now, we know of course it's a Wednesday and we're midweek, and of course exhaustion. People are really tired when it comes to midweek, and the week can tend to be prolonged on Wednesday. But anyway, you have to get inspired, wake up in the morning, be motivated, have something that wakes you up in the morning, have reason, have purpose of waking up in the morning. Okay, everyone has reason for, I wake up to come and be here presenting to you information regarding business. So that is my sole purpose for now, giving you information. So why not wake up and make it happen? Of course, let's get inspired for the day. And of course, the most difficult thing is actually to act. That is what is actually becoming problematic even in our country, Uganda. Implementing is the hardest part of everything. You can talk and talk, have plans, but then acting is where the acting is actually, it's the action itself. So you better, what you say, what you plan, you better act it, because that is how that's how you're going to commence things. So eventually you'll have to do something. So let's do action now, okay? Let's stop the verbative form and act, okay? If you've planned to start out something at the end of the year, please start it out, okay? Let it be there. Okay, fine. Let it be there and maybe not reach somewhere, but let it be there, okay? So quit talking and let's do more action. That is our motivation of the day. Do something for yourself. If you've been having a plan or you've been having something pending, breathe in, breathe out, and do what is required of you. And of course, right about now, I'm joined with Andrew Badija, and we're still discussing the topic of the day regarding telecommunication industry, how it's been performing. We're seeing the usage of data. A number of people are using actually more data than voice calls and airtime, compared to the earlier days when people had not yet gotten the real use of data. Now that the smartphones are on, people can access, people need to Google things, people need to market their things online. So the performance of telecommunication industry, how do you see our telecommunication industry? How is it performing? I mean, how many do we even have? How many telecommunication companies do we have in Uganda?
Well, according to the Uganda Communications Commission, we have about 35.
35. And people know like 5 or 3?
Yeah, because telecommunication is quite wide.
Yeah.
It's quite wide range. Some are actually, some are telecommunications, but they operate on others, can I call them servers in some sort of a way, in order to distribute the services, SNSAs, and all that. But of course, this discussion comes at a point where a report still was released that the telecommunication companies seem to be making much more money on data services as compared to people using voice bundles. Voice data bundles seem to be taking quite a higher percentage. And we've seen quite a remarkable performance by these telecommunications and their impact onto the East African region. Definitely ever since their introduction, talking about the early 1990s for Uganda's sake, because we've had quite lots of them coming, despite the fact that some actually have not really been able to make it up to the expectations, and they end up closing. But definitely we shall be looking further into that. But of course, as of now, our focus is going to be on the impact. To what extent have these telecommunications companies impacted businesses that is on East Africa, and how much are businesses actually saving as a result of using these telecommunications? I mean, the services that are being offered in here. Now, according to a report here, I can see that a 2021 study that is by the World Bank found that businesses, most especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, that use the internet are more likely, that is, to export their products and services. Why? The massive exposure as a result of that, and because once you get exposed, you will get to understand what is on demand, and that will definitely get to influence that. Probably, let's take a look at how this has been impactful. That is to the East African community. Let's take a look at these statistical aspects here as we proceed further. Okay, and of course, just to accompany what you're actually seeing in there, like I said, in 2021, the communication industry in East Africa generated about 13.5 billion, that is US dollars, in revenue, according to the GCMA. And now this represents a growth of 6.7. That is from the previous years. Now this is a report as of up to 2021 over the last couple of years that happened. Now, of course, we see that the mobile segment accounts for the majority of revenue, generating about 11.5 billion. That is as of 2021. Now, of course, later on we shall be waiting and see for the coming years from 2021, probably, because now most of the projections are towards 2025. Now, still the telecommunication industry within the region directly and indirectly employs over 1 million people. That is on the East African globe. In Uganda alone, it's about 200,000 people that are employed by the telecommunications sector. So, I mean, this includes jobs in telecommunications operators, service providers, and so many. And of course, we also looking at the telecommunications industry, which is expected to generate $14.3 billion in revenue. That is this year we're in. That is still according to the GCNA. Now this represents a growth of 5.9% from the previous year. That is quite positive, right? Isn't that positive, Masu?
Yeah, it's positive.
Yeah, and now I'll see still the telecommunications industry in East Africa directly and indirectly employs over 1.1 million people as of this year. 1.1 million people. Uganda, about 200,000, I think now. That is as of 2022, but as now we come to 2023, it could be like 1.2, 1.5 because of,
so this is general enough East Africa.
Exactly.
Okay.
And also to accompany it with a 2019 study by the International Telecommunications Union, which found that e-commerce businesses in East Africa generated about 5.2 billion in revenue. That was in 2018. That is quite a good amount of money to sustain. Because once you can generate this money, that means you can employ quite a number of people, and they get jobs. And still, a 2020 study by the Uganda Communications Commission found that 40%, of Ugandan businesses now use e-commerce to sell their products and services. That is quite some improved efficiency as a result of that. Now, the most interesting aspect here is that still a 2019 report that is by the ITU found that businesses in East Africa save an average of about $100 per month on communications costs by simply using mobile voice over internet protocol services. Now, when I talk about the voice over internet protocol services, it's one of the ways you can actually make a phone call direct through the internet other than using the traditional way, which is the analog kind of a style. $100 per month being saved on communications, and that is something which we can actually see. But of course, that did not only stop there, because we've seen quite a number of e-commerce platforms that have been rising up. We see Jumia, which is also one of the biggest e-commerce platforms on the continent. The aspect of Safaricom, a telecommunications company in Kenya, which launched its e-commerce, its own actually platform, that is called Masoko. Now, this one allows customers to shop a variety of products, including groceries, electronics, and clothing. But all this is attributed to the rise of the telecommunications industry that is favoring this. Mobile banking, has come into place. In here, M-Pesa, that is a mobile service that launched in Kenya still in 2007. And now used over by 50 million people. That is on the continent of East Africa. We have the Tigo Pesa, and quite so many. Now, for Uganda's case, agriculture has been impacted. In Tanzania, now farmers in Tanzania use mobile applications to actually be in position to have access to inputs. Talking about agriculture inputs that they use as a result of that. So, for the education, the University of Nairobi offering online courses, and of course, even in Uganda, we have that, and which is quite very impressive. Now, Rwanda using mobile technology, that is in Rwanda, they use mobile technology to actually deliver content to students, still that, and that is all over East Africa. So, if we are to look at all these, piling it down, because we are looking at the impact of the telecommunications, and we've seen the number of people that are being employed, how it is impacting agriculture, how it's impacting education, but of course, the impact also comes with results at the same time, because it's evident that Jumia's revenue in East Africa in 2022, just alone last year, it generated about 600 million US dollars in 2022. M-Pesa, that is M-Pesa's transaction value in East Africa was $200 billion dollars in 2022. That alone last year. That's much more than Elon Musk's net worth actually, which was generated by M-Pesa. So you can see that the digital financial services transactions in East Africa is still expected to reach 500 billion US dollars. That is come 2025. So the ultimate question is that how are you positioning yourself to actually participate into such a trend? Talking about Uganda, So this comes back with the aspect of investing in quite a lot of aspects that are related to mobile banking, right?
Yeah.
So, well, now these are still away from that. the decision making still now comes back to the new startups, because we've seen quite a number of startups in East Africa, most especially that are tech based. In personal, I've been able to interact with some of the Ugandan startup personnel that have these they have these fintech related aspects. Fintech, most especially in Uganda, is one of those aspects in technology that seem to be a little bit trending. So by the time that we've been able to see these trends, these platforms generating billions of money, millions of dollars in revenue, billions of dollars in revenue, well, that really creates an inspirational atmosphere for the upcoming generations to know that there is actually a possibility. And these very companies are acting as the best line. Some of them are actually giving in funds in form of support to startups to make sure that they can actually also be at that same space. Well, it's exactly 24 minutes past 8. Of course, today we decided to discuss matters to do with the telecommunication industry, where it's heading. Of course, we've been taking a look at where it came from, most especially for the aspect of Uganda. Now we've seen the impact with, of course, statistical evidence, projections, what it is like, what was it like before, what it is like, and what are we supposed to do just right about now. But of course, as we head into the break, later on as we return about this very discussion, we shall be taking a look at the penetration of the telecommunications within the East African region, and still, what does it mean? That is to the businesses in all the nations of East Africa, but also bring it back to you as a Ugandan. How are you using this information? What does this information really mean? All right, okay, if we have quite a number of telecommunications penetrating into the region, that must mean something to the business. But of course, we shall be coming up further with those discussions. But of course, still, before we get into the break, I'd love to remind you that the markets on the Zebra platform are on. You can kindly participate by simply dialing *292#, which is the USSD code that will avail you with options where you'll be in position to actually buy government bonds and securities. This is just for 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Now, as we speak right now, the market's already on. Yes, you can participate. *92#, 15,000. Buy the bonds Monday up to Friday, except on the weekends and the public holidays when the markets get a break. But that's not the big deal. You have at least the rest of the days, Monday up to Friday, and even if within that there is a public holiday, you have 4 days left, because it's rare we have 2 public holidays in a week. It's always one. So you have the rest of the other 4 days to make money. And for now, just don't talk about public holidays, still independence. So you still have it all to trade. That's why Zabo clearly comes out and says, it's my money, it's my future. And also East Africa tells you that you gotta do something new for yourself. Remember, it is 2023. Well, now we'll take a break. It's business and sports and entertainment coming up shortly.